Yeah, so extracted, the download that Terraform, the zip file and extract it, and wherever you have extracted, you take the complete path and define in the path variable. Then open the Git bash terminal and check it the Terraform is you are able to run it or not by using the Terraform version command. Yeah, that is the first section. And the second section, that's how do we start implementing the Terraform scripts. Yeah, first you need to have the clarity on that, the requirement. If you have the clarity on the requirement, then it is easy to work with that. Yes, about our requirement is we need to create a web server with the security groups. Yeah, we started that resources belong to that OK provider, first defining the provider section. Yes, we were taking the Terraform block for the AWS provider, and we had defined this AWS provider. And this AWS provider in which region that we would like to plan it. Is the region also we have defined. That is the first provider specification. But after defining the provider, we need to have the credentials also, that is authentication and authorization. But for this provider, that is AWS provider, authentication mechanism, either you can use it defining that access key, secret key within the provider block, but that is not recommended, or we can use it environment variables defining at system level. But instead of that, AWS, we know that already configure option, use that AWS configure and define that access key, secret key, and the region information, and create or configure that AWS CLI. Then you can use that Terraform with that AWS CLI approach. Yeah, that's about first provider specification. Then we are installing this provider specific plugins by using the Terraform init command. That is going to help you to install all the plugins. Then we started implementing the resources. The resource identification is, yes, you can refer from the Terraform documentation itself, or you can search it from the Google. You can get the block of the code and you can use it, that block of the code, to create a resources. Yeah, so here we were creating the AWS instance resource by giving the name as web server, and where we are specifying the AMI ID and instance type. So there are the two main important arguments which are required to pass it to this resource. There are like inputs which we can see that. Then we were using the Terraform plan, Terraform apply to create a resources. And we were doing the manually changing over there. And after that, if you reapply the Terraform manual, the resources and manual configuration, which you are managing through the Terraform, those manual configurations which will be overridden whenever you run the next time the Terraform scripts. Yeah, that's also we are observing that, and we were adding the tags. So that means it is updating that existing instance. It is not going to create a new instance. It's already instance is there. To that instance, you can change the properties at any time. But some properties that is required, terminating existing instance and launching the new instance. Suppose AMI ID if I change it, a type of instance if I change it, existing instance updating, it is not going to do that. So Terraform dynamically it is going to identify that what are the change you have defined in the desired state. So on the basis of the change, it is going to take the decision of it. Either it is required to create a new resource, that means terminating existing one, creating a new resource, but it is not going to manage the two resources. Yeah, whether that change is required to destroy the resource under recreation or existing resource itself, it can be updated or not. So the Terraform is going to decide it, and it is going to apply the configuration changes. And TF state file also is very, very important. So what are the current state of that infra? That means as the desired state point of view, the desired state and infra state, is it the same or not? It is going to manage it in the TF state file. This is the important file from the Terraform. Yeah, so there are the points that we are trying to understand it. So is it clear about these points?
Yes, sir, clear.
Yeah, good. So now if I go back to the Terraform about our the workspaces, this is the workspace, right? Where about our code is we are implementing. Yes, implementation part I'm using IDE, that is development kit, that is Visual Studio Code, but I am running that through the Git bash step. Yes, let's go for that. Launching the instance Terraform apply. But if you remember the Terraform apply command, whenever we are running, it prompts for that confirmation that is yes. But if you are running this Terraform apply commands through the CI/CD process, automation process, that means maybe you need to run it midnights, maybe you need to run it yes on the basis of some intervals about these commands. Then how you are going to approve it? Are you going to confirm each and every time yes, 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 like that? No, we can use it one argument to this apply command, that is --- auto -approve. So this argument to this Terraform apply command is going to helping that to automatic approving that. Yeah, now let's see this. So meanwhile, let me log into the console. Yeah, we are using the Singapore region, right? Yeah, so now we just started launching the instance. You see the pending state that is started. Yeah, the web server. So, and one more option here in the Terraform apply command, it was not prompting for yes. So now we have confirmed auto approve. So even that m install command, if you remember that -y we use it. -y is auto approval. So like this in the Terraform apply command. So if you are going to write that, I mean, if you are going to run the command through the CI/CD process or automation approach, we use it --- auto approve. And now it has been launched the one instance, one resource, but no changes, no destroyed. Yes, this is the thing which we are doing that yesterday also, right? But the next point is, how do I access this instance? Yes, now I need to do SSH to the instance. SSH, how do you do that?
Mobile external or
Yeah, so yes, mobile external which we use that. First of all, key pair is required, right?
yes.
I need to have the key pair. But what is the key pair? Have we attached the key pair to this instance?
No.
So key, we didn't define that. Any key pair, I mean, no key pair has been defined. So now let's go for that. How do we attach the key pair? Now I need to do that SH. SH, if you would like to do that, security group is required. Yes, security group level 22 has to be enabled, and key pair is also required. But what are the key pairs are available if we verify that in our networks and key pair section? Oh, we are creating this so many. I have so many key pairs, but let me create one key pair. That is the first requirement. You need to create a key pair and you need to have the key pair first. Then you can use that key pair attaching to the EC2 instance. So I'm going to create one key pair. Let me give that. This is Terraform. Yeah, .pem file, I need it. I don't need the .ppk. .pem file. So let's create a key pair. I'm downloading this. Yes, I have the PEM file now. Now I need to define my key pair to the EC2 instance. Which key pair I would like to attach to this EC2 instance now? I need to attach Terraform. But how do I define it? So let's refer the Terraform documentation, the resource section. And if you go to that, yes, this is AWS instance. And if you go to that argument reference section, how do I attach that, the key pair? I need to find the argument for it. So if you just search for that key, yes, so the key name is the argument which you can define in the Terraform script, key pair to use it for the instance, which can be managed using the AWS key pair. Yeah, let me take it this key name, the property, and let's go to that implementation. What I need to define it? Key name. But what is the key name? That's we have to say is that is Terraform. Okay, so now I have added that one more the attribute or argument, right? Yes, programming, I'm getting that. Yes, argument, that is a key name, that is a Terraform. Yes, that's Terraform PEM file I have, and I have defined. Okay, so let me rerun that Terraform scripts and we'll see that whether it is going to attach it or not. I'm just going to run it, Terraform apply command once again. So now what is the change which you are expecting is key pair we are attaching that. Tags are already there. And yes, AMI type of instance, there are the properties. Now we have added one more property. There is a key name. But once this has been attached to the key pair, I see this, what it is doing, the resource creation point of view. Existing resource it is destroying and a new resource it is launching that. That means existing instance you cannot attach the key pair. So key pair. So first, whenever you are launching, you need to make sure that key pair has been attached. If the key pair is not attached, then you need to destroy the previous instance and launch the new instance. That is, yes, on the basis of the property which we are how changing that, then the Terraform is identifying that. Is it required only applying the change, or do I need to destroy the previous instance and launch in the new instance? Now let's go back to the browser and observe that. So what's going to happen there here? Yeah, the previous instance was terminated, so which was not having any key name. Now the new instance has been launched with key name, that is Terraform. Yes, once this system is ready, now I can connect it. Right? Is it clear now the key pair? So let's take this public IP address and let's go back to the mobile XTEM. But can we connect it now? Is it possible? What is the next requirement? Why it is not connecting?
Available to
Yes.
join.
Port not yet opened. Suppose if you verify that security group of the instance which has been attached now, so some default security group has been attached. And inbound rules, if you verify that, so all protocols and all ports, it has been enabled, but from the source default security group, it is not enabled from 0000. Only some specific other security group it is enabled, right? So that means 22 port, yes, it is enabled, but it is you can access it only from the instances which are using this security group. But we don't want this rule. Let me delete it and let me add the rule. What is the rule that's required is we need to have that sh, that is 22 from any IP address. Let me save the rule. This I'm doing that manually, but we need to convert that one into the code. We'll come back. So now if I come back to here and if I try to reconnect once again, that is Shift R. Is it enabled SH now? Yes, it is enabled and we are able to connect it. That means security group is port, security group port is not enabled in the default. Yeah, SSH port is not enabled in the default security group, which has been attached to this EC2 instance. But we don't want to use it the some default security groups. We would like to create a security group and we would like to attach that security group to the EC2 instance. Now, how do I create a security group? Which is required for my custom EC2 instances. Yes, while launching the EC2 instance, we have to create a security group or use the existing security group. But I would like to create a new security group, which is required for the 22 port, and we are planning to launch it as a web server also. That is 22 port and 80 port. These two ports required for us. Yeah, how do we define the security group now? Is in the Terraform. So one more resource we need to create. Yeah, let's go back to the documentation of the Terraform. Now what we are expecting is security group. Maybe is it available? The complete name, let me check. in the VPC is AWS underscore security group. So this resource we need to create. Let's see this example. Yeah, resources, AWS security group, and you can give the label name of the security group, description of the security group, in which VPC that you want to create it. And then ingress rules. Ingress is nothing but inbound rules, and egress is nothing but outbound rules. Outbound rules anyway, by default that is enable everything, right? So inbound is everything blocked. Outbound, it is allowed everything. You see this even the default also it is allowed everything. Yeah, egress is outbound from port to ports for all the protocols, CDA block, IPv4, yes, all the IP addresses, or IPv6, all the addresses, it is supporting that. But inbound, that is ingress rule, we don't enable all ports and all protocols from all the CDA blocks, right? Yeah, we need to define the specific ports. Like I need to know to connect to this instance, I need to have it 22 port and as well as 80 port. Yes, those two rules I need to define it. Ingress 1 and ingress 2, we need to define it. So let's take this block of the code, security group resource. We'll customize it as per the requirement. Let's go back to the development, and yes, in the resources.tf file, I'm going to add it, this resource. But let me customize it. This is a label. I'm going to mark it as a web server security group. And the name also, yes. Once it has been created, how do you want to identify this security group? Web server security group. And description, allow SSH and HTTP ports or protocols. VPC, yes, that is a default VPC ID. Okay, so let's define that as a default one. Or you can comment this any by default it is going to use it anyway, default VPC. Or if it is mandatory, we'll come back to that. And ingress, I need the two ingress ports. One is for, so you are defining that any security group rule is nothing but you need to define these properties, right? Edit inbound rules, and you are adding any rule is nothing but you need to define type. You need to define the protocol, port, source, and description. So there are the 5 or 6 properties. So those 5 or 6 properties now we are defining in this block. From port, yes, which port I would like to allow that? 22. To port is also 22. Protocol, yes, TCP, leave it that. CDA block 0.0.0.0/0. IPv6, I don't need that. So you can skip this. And this is SSH protocol. Description of this. Is it clear now? Ingress rule, outgress or outbound rules. Egress is nothing but outbound and ingress is nothing but inbound. Yeah, we are allowing that outbound, no issues. All the ports and IPv6 anyway, you don't need that. That's I'm deleting. If you need it, yes, you can use that block. Let's use it. as a string. Okay. Yeah, so this is one port, but we need to have that only one port or two ports. Two inbound rules we are going to define. HTTP protocol 80. Okay, finally tags name of the security group. This is web server security group. Okay, so this is about the resource which you are creating that. But finally, this resource you need to use it or you need to attach to the EC2 instance. That is important. Security group creation is not enough. So once a security group has been created, we need to attach that security group to the EC2 instance. So normally, how do you do that at the EC2 instance level? Yes, once EC2 is available, go to the actions, security section, change security groups. And here you can add it or remove the security group. So now the security group we have created, or we have defined that, but we need to attach that to the EC2 instance. How do I do that? How do we do that? So one more argument we need to find. So what is the argument for it? So let's search it. The Terraform documentation for the EC2 instance resource. Yes, this is the AWS instance resource. And argument. Security group. So we have the security groups here. This is the EC2 classic and default VPC only. It is going to helping that, but we need to find it one more. Simple browse it in the Google, you will get it that. But yes, let me show that. So we'll be having that VPC. So if you are creating instances in a VPC, use the VPC underscore security group underscore IDs. Yes, this is the attribute which we need to use it. So classic VPC, if you are using, we have the VPC different. I mean, the classic, nobody is using that. So security groups is a property which is available. But if you are creating instances in a specific VPC, you can use it VPC security groups. Or if you are using the default VPC also, you can use it the security groups. Yeah, the two attributes, two arguments they have given that, either security groups or VPC security group IDs. But whenever we are using the specific VPC, yes, this is recommended. Or if you are going to use the default VPC, yes, this property you can use it. They are supporting for the default VPC only. Yeah, let me use it this property and we see that any issues, and as per that we go for it. Yeah, I'm going to use it now, the attribute security groups. So this is the property I would like to define it. But how do I define the security group? But security groups, can we add it to only one or multiple? For one EC2 instance, can we add it to multiple security groups or only one security group?
We can add, sir.
We can add multiple, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so just we are observing that if I select the EC2 instance and if you go to the action security, change security groups, yes, we can add it to multiple security groups for one EC2 instance. I mean, this is kind of the list. It is not just only one, it is kind of a list. You need to add it multiple. But how do I add it to multiple? in the Terraform. As we're talking that this is the list. So we need to define the list type. How do we define the list type is we'll use the square brackets here. This is a list representation. And here you can pass that the security group IDs, multiple security group IDs with the comma representation. So tags, it is going to use the map if you observe that. But security groups, if you just talk it about it, so this is set of strings. The data type is set of string. Mouse over, if you see that set of string. Multiple string IDs you can pass it. Yes, this is one ID. Or if I may have that one more, yes, I can pass it one more ID over here. But we have only one. But that's also, I need to read it from this one, this resource. How do we read the resource? One resource referencing in another resource. Now this resource, I need to use it in this resource. Now what I need to use it? AWS security group dot. And then what is the name? Web server security group dot. And we need to define the ID of this security group. So are you clear about this? But if you are reading this one, so you don't need to specify that the string option. You can just ignore this. But if you are going to hardcode the ID like this, something SG-12345 then you can use it this string notation. But we are referencing from other resource. So this is other resource. This resource name is web server, and that web server ID we are reading. Anyway, it is returning the string. You see that it is returning the string during runtime. You don't need to use it double quotation. So there are all the things that we can verify during runtime. Yeah, now I have associated this resource, that is security group, whatever we are creating that web server security group with ingress 2 rules 2280 and egress allowing that all the rules. That security group we have attached to this instance with the property security groups, and we are assigning this security group to this instance. Is it clear now? Now let's see this running, and we'll see this like any errors or the exceptions from this. Because sometimes whenever we are referring that attributes or the arguments, so it doesn't support. Then you need to re-verify it and re-modify that as the current Terraform versions. The arguments or attributes you are using is nothing but these are all the dependencies on the basis of the version of the Terraform which you have installed also. Some versions, the attributes which will be deprecated, or it doesn't support it, or it gives the warning messages. Then you need to check it and you need to re-modify the attributes as per the latest version. But security group attaching for this, is it required to destroying the existing instance? Yeah, so it is adding the 2 resources. Have we defined the 2 resources? So what are those? Let's check it. Yeah, security group. Okay, one resource it is creating, and this resource it is attaching, right? Okay, yes, good. Security group is also creating new resource. So now with this state, so what is that? We got it to the EC2 instance. We have defined the AMID and instance type. We have attached the key pair, and to access the instance, the required ingress and outbound rules we have defined. Now I can use it this key pair, and I can 22 is enabled, and I can access the EC2 instance, right? But we got it some error. Let's see this. What is the error? Creating EC2 instance invalid parameter value. Value for parameter group ID is invalid. The value cannot be empty. So which one it is saying that? Invalid parameter value. AWS instance. Okay, so whenever it is creating the security group ID, a security group ID is created, but ID attaching is, it is saying this invalid. So let's check it that the attributes once again. So if you go to, I need to check it, attributes of the security group. One of the attributes that is returning ID is returning. Okay, ID of the security group. We are good. So that is available. But instance point of view, is it supporting security group IDs or not? That is a point. As we are observing the two arguments we have, right? Two inputs we can define it. Security group. So this one, is it supporting it or not? That is, I have that doubt. Okay, let me go ahead and use that VPC security group IDs. I'll try to use this one instead of the security group IDs. Let me run it and we'll see there's any exception, and as per that exception, get it more exceptions. Then yes, we have already the code. I can take the code and I can use it, but less as per the latest versions, check it about it. What are the possible options? Because version 2 version, the arguments and the attributes are going to changing that. So you should get familiarity with that. How do we refer the documentation of the Terraform? Yeah, now it seems it's okay. So that means it is supporting that VPC underscore security group IDs, not the security group. But even they mentioned that the default VPC can use it, but it is not accepting that. Yeah, so that is on the, whenever you are using these attributes or arguments, yeah, both like inputs and outputs, whenever you are working with that as per the version of the Terraform, so during that implementation, first explore it. So try to refer the documentation and applying it, and on the basis of the exceptions which are getting that, and we need to apply the changes. So let's see this what's going to happen there. Yes, it is created the resources one. So let's check it. The browser, what's happened. Yeah, so there's a new instance which has been launched as per the latest change. And has it been attached to the key pair? Let me check it. Yes, the key pair is available. And now you see the security group Name is also, it is showing that web server security group. Yes, this one we have created. Now, if you go to the security section and if you open the web server security group, 2 inbound rules and 1 outbound rules we have defined. 2 inbound rules. As you see that this is having the 2 inbound rules. One is for the 22 and 80 from accessing this from any IP address as the description which are defined. As it is same, it is created, right? If you do modify it also here, but whenever you rerun the Terraform is going to applying that as per the Terraform desired state. And if you come back to that outbound, yes, you see that outbound rules also, all traffic is supported that. Yeah, that is the default anyway. Now, if I go back to this instance, and if I take this IP address, public IP address, and let's go back to the YX term. This was the previous instance. So let's log in. Yeah, so now I didn't define any manually configuring that security group for the EC2 instance. That is also we are managing through the Terraform itself. Are you clear about this resource? That is security group creation. So this security group which are created, and we have assigned the security group to this EC2 instance. Are you clear about these points?
Yes, sir.
Everyone type that in the chat window, the clear quickly. Okay, good. Now, next, what is the point? So what we are doing, the manual. Yeah, if you have the clarity on the manual, then we can do all these things. So that is as per the requirement, we are going through that. But if you don't have the requirement and if you'd like to work with this kind of tools, so that is kind of the version. So that is instead of going to that, which way you need to, run it or we swim it in this version. If you have the specific agenda, then it is easy. The specific, the navigator, then it is easy instead of having that like specific, instead of having the specific route requirement, we can say that simple. Good. Fine, let's continue to the next one. Next one, what is the requirement is, okay, we talked about the code optimization. Okay, so we have done EC2 instance launching security group, and we are able to log into that EC2 instance, and everything is good with the Terraform. But code optimization, as we're talking, the 2 more concepts, that is about variables and outputs. But we didn't define any variables and we didn't define any outputs. We are hard coding everything over here. But this is not recommended. What do we do? The next one is, let me define the variables. Now we know that some kind of the types of the variables. Yes, if you just mouse over on that, this is the string, this is the string, this is the string, this is the list. This is the list set of strings. You can define that multiple strings over here. Security group 1, security group 2, multiple security groups, we can attach it. So the list which will be represented with a square bracket. So string which will be represented with a double quotations, and a numeric value. And another data type which we're talking that this is map, which is on the key and value representation. So there are the different data types we are understanding that. Data types, whenever you are defining the variable, you need to define the type of the variable also. Is it a string type or is it a numeric or integer? Or is it a list that is a set of attributes? Or is it a map which is in the dictionary format, key and value representation? Yeah, map is a key and a value. List is just define the set of elements 1, 2, 3, 4. You have the 100, yes, define it. List of all the attributes or elements, we can say. The best word is elements. And string format. Yeah, now we know that data types. Whenever we are defining all these arguments of this resource. But how do I define my custom variables? Yeah, if you refer the documentation of the Terraform, if I go back to the Terraform documentation, let me search it here in the Google. Terraform variables. Yeah, so input variables. But what are the different input variables are available? Input and output. Output will come back. Yeah, declaring an input variable, how to define this variable is variable. Already we discussed the skeleton we discussed. Variable name. And you can use the default and value assigning that. But here one more attribute we are talking to the type of the variable. So do you want to define this as a string variable or is it a list variable? You see this type as a list, but within the list, how you are going to store it? The elements, the string format. A list, how to define it? Within the square brackets. Yeah, multiple regions, you need to define that. The availability zones. This is one zone, comma, another zone, like multiple zones you can define it. And another type which you are talking that, the list which is objective type also. Yeah, this is the string format, but this is a objective format. This is one object, this is another object, this is another object, which is the key value representation. You see that here it is representing curly braces. Curly braces you are using is nothing but that is kind of the map, which is the key and the value. But if you use the square brackets, is nothing but this is a list of elements. Yeah, whenever you are declaring the variable, you need to define the type of variable and what is the default value of the variable. Now here you see the different types which are available. What are the different types? Yes, type constraint. Yes, you have the string, number, boolean. Boolean true or false. List type, map type. Mainly these two which we use that. And set also is available. But list and set both are almost the same. But what is the difference between the list and set is list. In the list, you can define that duplicate elements. But set, it doesn't allow the duplicates. That means already one attribute you have defined with the value something 5. But you cannot use it 5 repeating that one more attribute or one more element in the set. Duplicate, it doesn't accept it. But at least accepts the duplicates. That is the main difference, but both are almost the same. Map, which is the key value representation. Remaining string, number, boolean, these are all the same point, right? Yeah, so whenever you are defining that inputs, yes, you need to use this structure, the variable definition. So let me take it that one example, and let's go back to the implementation section, and I'll define this new file for the variables. Let me go to this project and let me define variables.tf. You can define in the existing scripts also, but have it the specific file for the variables, and this is the variable I would like to define that. Yes, image ID type is a string, but what is the default value? One more point what we have to say is for the default string, anyway, this is the representation of the string, then you don't need to use the type as a string. This is optional. Okay, this is the optional. So whenever you use it, the double quotation to assign the value to this default, then automatically it is going to consider this as a string. But if you'd like to manage it, yes, you can use it, the type also. Yeah, now the type of the variable as a string, and the variable name is image ID, and the default value. What is the value I would like to assign to this one is, if I go to the resources and about our AWS instance, this is the AMID. I don't want to hard code the AMID here. I'm removing that here. I'm converting that one as a variable. Yeah, tomorrow if it is required to change that AMID, I don't need to go to the script. All right. Here I don't need to touch it. So yes, I'll open the variables and variables will customize it. Only this file we will modify it. Yes, what is the advantage of the variable says? Suppose I need to use the same project for the staging environment also. This is a development environment, staging also. But staging environment AMID is different. Development environment AMID is different, right? So don't touch this script. You should implement like that. That means what are the like arguments you are going to the hard coding here, convert that one into variables. Now that AMI ID I have defined as a variable, now I'll read this variable over here. So now in the resources, how do I define it? We will read the variable. How do we read the variable? Var dot image ID. Like that, let me take it one more variable. So this is the code optimizations we'll talk about. Output is the same, both are the same, but this is recommended. Now future, maybe I need to change that instance type. But instance type, if you hard code it here, each and every time going here and changing that is a problem. I mean, you can do it. Suppose you are sharing this code to that other project team. But other project team about your resources, what you have implemented, if they would like to identify, that is somewhat difficult. Then what you can say that, first take this project and go to the variables.tf and customize this AMI ID and type of instance as per about your project, and run the Terraform apply. Yes, you can go ahead. Don't worry about it, what it has been implemented within the scripts. That is the beauty of the variables. Right? So here what I need to define instance type. Yeah, using these IDs, that is advantage. Now I see that whenever I just use it var dot, I'm going to getting that all the variables list. Image ID we have defined, instance type we have defined. Just to select that, which one you need it. That's all. And key name is, let me convert this one also as a variable. Now let me refer this variable in the resources section, that is var dot key name. You see this now, the code, how it's looking that. And you can do one more point. You can format about your code also. Suppose if you go to the command prompt, wherever you have the project, and you can use the Terraform command format. So it is going to arrange the code in the proper form. To see FMT. Yeah, so shortcut form FMT. Yeah, so now these two files have been updated or formatted as per the requirement. As per that's the code, and if you go back to the scripts, yes, you see that some format you got it. Before it was some clumsy. I mean, that's like equals here, equals here, equals here. But now it is properly organized. You see that these resources also it has been properly organized. Even that provider also. But it was showing that only two files. Anyway, these are having the proper format. So you can do the format whenever you change the code. Is it clear about this? The defining the variables like that. Now you can convert these tags also into the variable. How do I do that? In the variables.tf. Now you can define the variable for the tags. Web server tags. But type which you need to define that the map. Type as a map, and the default value yeah, now this is the default value which are defined. Now you can read this variable, that is var.webserver tags. If I go to the here and just let me remove this one, the var dot web server tags, that is a map. That's done. Now if I go to script and if I run it, the format, yes, variables.tf has been formatted, that's fine. And now one more point, you can check that whatever the code you have implemented, that is in the proper syntax is it following it or not. You can validate about your script. So there's a Terraform validate. If you have any syntax issues or the errors, then it is going to validate the scripts in the current project, and it is going to give that output. If everything is okay, it says that validation successful, or if you have any errors, then it throws error. So two more commands which you are understanding. Now Terraform format and Terraform validate. Yeah, the configuration is valid. Whatever we have modified in the scripts, so everything that is proper syntax. Is it clear? Are you getting the point? Now let me define for the ports also 2280. Yeah, we'll convert that one, and then we'll move to that another type of the variable, that is outputs. So SSH port. And what is the port? 22. Like that, let me define for HTTP port also. See how the beauty and how it is. I mean, that is enjoying that writing the code, right? Yeah, if you understand one time that's the coding, then if you have those like analytical skills, so it's a very good like working. I mean, coding is a funny, which we can say that. Yeah. So these two things, SH port. Even I can convert this one also CDA block related. But anyway, that is about whenever you are working, you can try that. Let me define one more variable, HTTP. Yeah, remaining even these names, descriptions. Okay. So if you're having the time, you can convert it. Yeah. So that's about the variables definition. That is inputs, how do we define it? But finally, the output is the same. So let me check it and let's run it. Terraform apply command. So output is the same. We didn't do that in any new implementation. Before, whatever the state it was there, the same state. But we have converted instead of hard coding that about AMI IDs, about that type of instance and the region also. Even that if you go to the provider.tf file, so region also convert into the variable. That is also recommended. Because the region, maybe if you would like to change it, then don't touch the script. That is main agenda of the variables. So tomorrow, if I would like to change the region as per my new environment or new project, it has to be reuse my existing scripts without having any complexity. So just variables.tf, that is the file. Remaining in the business logic, what it has been implemented, I don't mind it. So variables.tf, open it. And about your region, about your AMID, about your the ports which are required. Security group related. Yes, customize it and use it. Yeah, now it is not applied any changes. You see that we just changed that variables. But one more point here, whenever we are trying to connect to the instance, we are each and every time going to that management console. I mean, that is, yeah. So going to the management console and getting the IP address, right? That is something which I don't want, I mean, which I don't feel comfortable. So coming to here and taking this, I mean, selecting that the EC2 instance and going to here and taking that the public IP and then connecting to the system using the mobile system. I don't want to come to here. So this IP address, I need to have it. How do I get it there? So whenever I run the Terraform scripts, whatever that the IP address of that instance, I would like to print it here itself. That means I would like to generate output of it. Public IP address as an output. Yes, how do we define that outputs? Yeah, I'm going to define in the variables.tf itself that output variable also. But if you refer the documentation of it, input variables, and here itself you can find it output values also. Yes, this is output values. How do we define that output variable is? Yes, this is the structure of it. Simple, take the block of the code and come to this. And I'm going to define in the variables.tf itself, or you can use it different. If you have the more outputs, you can create separate TF file for it, and you can use it that. Yes, output and variable name. Yes, I need that web server public IP. Web server. You can describe that. How do you want to identify this? Yes, web server public IP. But which web server? AWS instance dot this web server, right? Let me take it this name. I need to get the value of this AWS instance. The server is web server. Do you need that private IP or public IP? Now these are all like attributes. So this web server instance related, what do you want that? AMID, do you need it? Or ARN, do you need it? Do you need like, do you see this? Yeah, so here you can see that public IP or public DNS name. What do you want that? See, this is the beauty of these editors. Visual Studio Code, the Terraform plugin, that extension, whatever we were adding, that is helping. Now, actually, this public DNS, to get it, I need to go back to my Terraform documentation and AWS instance, attribute section, yes, ARN, instance state, or password data, like that. I need to find it private DNS, public IP. Like that, I need to refer this documentation. But Visual Studio Code is helping that to get that what are the attributes that is going to return by this instance. Now I need that. What was that? Public IP. Yes, or if you need that public DNS, you can print it. You can use it one more variable. Public DNS. If you need that public DNS, you can use it that public DNS also. Or state of the instance if you need it. Yes, you can add the state of instance also. But I'm good. Yes, let's go ahead and you can explore some more the variables whenever you are practicing. So let me go back to the Terraform runtime and run the command, apply command. But it is not going to create any resources or changing the resources. So now as we have defined output variables it is generating. The beauty you see this now, there is no interface required, right? What you need it, you can define in your script and run the script is going to help in that. Okay, now we got it DNS name and as well as public IP. Yes, you can use it any one of that. Now, if I'm having this IP address, yes, I can copy here and I can go to my mobile XTEM and I can take this session. I can type it and we know that username already. Yeah, so without touching this AWS management console, I have created EC2 instance security group with required ports to enable it. And whatever the IP address that is required, yes, that's IP address we are getting in the console itself. Are you clear these points? The beauty of the programming. Is it interesting? Type that interesting. But have that, the clarity. So what do you need it? Have that clarity, then it is easy. Yeah, remaining, once the system is ready, so what we would like to do here? Yeah, what we are doing initially, the manual to launch it in the web server. Okay, let me do quickly within the system. Sudo yum update. First update the system, that is recommended. Okay, no packages marked for update. We are good. And install httpd and sudo systemctl start httpd and enable httpd. And if you would like to deploy the custom application, what we are trying to do is, yes, we are writing that some output of this. Welcome to HTTP server. And where do we need to write it, this content?
Next dot. Where file?
Where www html index.html file. But this is required with the sudo permissions. Yeah. So it is not accepting. Then what we can do is we can use it. This command output, we can take it. Yeah. Let me check if that argument. It's going to helping that output. Yes. -t. No, it is not supporting. So what is the argument? Paid help version. I use the complete offset one. Here we have this option icon. See something. Forgot that option. Okay, let me check it in the Google. Yeah, tr-e. Okay. Yeah, let me use the tr-e. -e or -o also it is showing. So this command now we are going to use it in -e, -o. -, or -. Just a minute. Getting treo. To write to the file, what is the option? So we are expecting to write to the file. That is the main hyphen yes hyphen. Okay, let me do that simple redirection option. Okay, that would be better.
Sir, we can check direct default test page, na sir?
Yeah, we can do that direct also,
Oh,
but we can open the file and we can write into that. But I'm just checking with this sudo option.
okay.
Let me try to do that. That is simple. Within a single minute we can complete it, but I'm checking this tr option. Okay, so anyway, I'll give that this command output later. Let me try to do this. Directly, if you like to do this, yes, you can do this VA and you can add it. Welcome to HTTPD server. That is done. So no issues of it, but I'll check it this command also. This is I'm expecting about it. The sudo with the tr option and passing about it. We need to find exact argument for it. So that argument I'll check it. But anyway, now if you verify it in the browser with this IP address, but what is the IP address of this system? Now we can get it from about our Git console itself. Now you don't need to go to the AWS management console. Yes, let's go back to the Mozilla Firefox and hit that 8080 port is already enabled with the security group, and we should be able to access the welcome to HTTP server. Yeah, if you have the root permissions, no issues, but that is a files editing. You have this. Normally we use the templates. Templates wise, I'll come back to this next approach. That is automating all the stuff. But I'm trying to use the tr command. But tr, what is that? I mean, why it is setting field? -cd. Okay, maybe cd option which is going to happen. But this is reading. I need that output to other file. Okay, I don't want to give this like, I mean, this command I'll give it later. But anyway, let's continue with this now. I need to have it all these commands to the user data section. So whatever we have done that the manual activity, if I go back to this the history of this one, there's a mobile XTEM which we are using. If I go to the history, Anyway, user data, it is going to use it that root privileges. We don't need to struggle with that. Yeah. So here I need these commands and this one also, even that's which we can redirect directly this one also. Yes, these commands we need to define in the user data section. How do I define it? So if you go to the resources section, so in this instance, whenever we are launching that is user data section, I need to define these commands. So which is going to helping to set up the web server. But anyway, we are using that user data section. User data is going to use the root user account default. So you can remove that even the sudo also. Okay, so these commands, now I need to run it as a user data section. How do we define the is? So all these commands as we can save this one as a shell script with the shebang option, with the bin bash, and save this one as a script, the Terraform folder.sh, and give that file name. This is HTTP server. Okay, now I have created the shell script, and this shell script I need to execute it while launching the instance. Then my HTTP server is ready. How do we define that is as we know that user data section, right? So user underscore data, this is the argument which is available. And here you need to pass that file, the shell script file. Yes, we have the function, that is the file function which we can use it. And we can pass the file name. What is the file name? HTTP server.sh. That's all. Now during that launching the instance, it is going to use this user data section, and the file it is going to read it, that is HTTP server.sh. Yeah, this in this script, what are the commands we have defined? All the commands it is going to execute. And now next we are going to come back to that. We don't want to use that EC2 user. So we would like to define the custom user while launching the EC2 instance. And we don't want to depend on the key pair. We would like to configure the custom passwords. And custom configurations, custom packages, everything we are going to do that with this kind of the scripts. That is with the Ansible we can do, or that is with the shell scripting we can do that. Yeah, now the shell script, I would like to call it as user data, and I would like to pass this script. Let's go ahead and run this script. But user data, is it going to launch the new instance or is it going to use that existing instance? So what's going to happen there? So user data to execute it, that is a change which we have done. But the change point of view, is it going to launch the new instance or existing instance? Is it going to updating that? What's going to happen there?
It launches new instance.
Sorry, it is?
It launches new instance. Because
Why?
when we are doing manually, that user data we cannot update. No, it reboots, means when it is starting, then only user data it
Yeah,
applicable.
actually, yes, user data should be applicable whenever
When
we are launching
is,
time.
yes.
Yes. So here, but what it is doing, you see that 1 to change. It is going to show that 1 to change Actually, it has to be recommended is destroy it and launch it. But even the Terraform is not able to identify that the dynamically that change, it is not going to destroying the existing instance and launching the new instance. So if you have modified that user data, what is the recommended is explicitly destroy it and launch the instance. So now even it show
means that Terraform is not identifying user data.
yes. If you do changes in the shell script, it doesn't know that change.
Okay.
So in that context, yes, what is recommended is if you're doing that any changes in the user data, do that explicitly terminating and relaunching. That is recommended. Because in the shell scripts, if you do any changes, it doesn't know it, right?
Yes.
Shell script is not the resource of the Terraform. Now it is adding that user data as a new attribute, but yes, it is just applying the change. But as we have the EC2 concept, it is going to require to, if you'd like to apply that bootstrap scripts, that's going to happen that only during launching time. So we have already manually we have installed. That's let me check it. Actually, what I have defined here, welcome to HTTP server. Okay, good. Now some change we have. Before, if you apply that HTTP server we have. Let's see this has it been applied the change. Simple. Whenever you have that user data, so destroy the instances and relaunch the instances. That is recommended. As even we do that the manual activity also the same thing. So there is no the resource at all. Let me go for destroying and relaunching freshly the latest instance. So I'm going to destroy it. Even the destroy also you can auto approve it. So without manual confirmation, you can use it -- auto. So today overall, if you just try to understand it, we have added the first key pair we have added, key name. Then we were adding about the security group. But before the security group, what we were doing? Yeah, key pair and security group. Yeah, security group resource and security group referencing within the EC2 instance. Then we were adding about the variables, the custom variables defining and outputs defining that. But whenever you are defining the variable, just remember that types of the variables, is it a string or is it numeric or is it a Boolean, list, map. Map which contain the dictionary type. Within the curly braces, you need to define it. And a list within the square brackets, you need to define. That is multiple elements we can define it. And a string, numeric, Boolean, they're all the straightforward. String which should be defined within the double quotation. Numeric, you don't need that any double quotation. And Boolean true or false. Yeah, that is about variable data types, which we should remember that. And the next concepts outputs, output variable name, and then value. Now, what is the value? Value, we're going to read it from resource attributes. Yeah, which resource and which attribute, that's you can define it. Then finally, we were understanding this. That's one more point. That is user data section. So let's wait for that to bring that the system. With this web server is ready, right? With all these configurations. Web server is ready, but what next? What are the next things that can be optimized? Okay, that is we have some more challenges. Still, that is not ended. Some more challenges we have. Thus, we'll come back to that. Okay, so let's take this IP address and is it working? But let's go for checking that. Yes, we got it. Welcome HTTP server. So this is the message which we are given, right? Welcome HTTP server. That's way hard to apply. So simple, how we are calling this is, yes, if you have the any scripts, yes, user data, the file use it, and the script you can call it that. In the script now you can define it, users creation, packages installation, if it is required any SSH configuration to the remote systems. These are all the things next we are coming to that. If you launch in the Ansible systems, yes, I'm not going to talk it these Terraform scripts. So next is shell script. The shell script, whatever it has been defined, yes, that's going to helping that. So during launching time, setting about your complete the system. Suppose I need the Jenkins system to launch it. Yes, now in this HTTP server, Jenkins installation and Jenkins starting commands, if I define it, my Jenkins system is ready. And Jenkins, what are the ports that is required? I'll define the Jenkins ports here. That is 8080. If I change it that 8080, my security group is enabled with 8080. Are you clear these points?
Yes, sir.
So that is next. The some more challenges. What do we have? This is we are hard coding the AMID. But if we change the region, okay, let me define that the region also one variable defining, because the region is not recommended to hard code that. So let's go to the variables. Let me define one variable for the region. Cool. Yeah, so whenever the region has been changed, AMID also has to be changed. Okay, that's fine. The region change is nothing, but obviously AMID has been changed. But AMID, again, you need to work with the manual, right? Going back to there and identifying that in that region, what is the AMID is available, and getting that AMID and defining here, some manual effort is required. So how do you get it dynamically? The AMID is on the base of the region which you are connecting to that. That is one more point. And the second, another important point here it is. Suppose ingress rules, here 2 ports we have configured, that is SH port and HTTP port. Tomorrow maybe HTTPS port is required, or maybe Jenkins port is required, or SonarQube port is required. So then are you going to extend that all the ports one by one like that ingress blocks? Then code is not dynamic, right? So tomorrow maybe 10 ports required, enabling for inbound rules. Then 10 ingress blocks, are you going to define it here? That is not recommended. So next approaches is how to make the dynamic these security group inbound rules. So if I define that the ports as a 10, then 10 ingress rules it has to create it dynamically. If I say that the ports 1, then only 1 ingress rule it has to create it. So how do you define that stuff? And how do you read that dynamically, the latest AMID from the region? Yeah, these are all the 2 more things that we need to extend this script. That is, we'll come back. Dynamic data. Then we have this one more important concept, the provisioners concept. So how do we define the provisioners? We have the file provisioner, local provisioners, remote provisioners. Suppose once EC2 instance is ready, I need to export some commands. During boot up time, we are talking about user data, but my system is already available. I need to connect it and I need to run the commands using Terraform. How do I do that? Because all the commands you cannot do that through the bootstrap. Some commands you need to run it after the system ready. Then how to manage it, those stuff? Or you need to copy the files to the EC2 instance. How to copy the files? So those stuff which we have this next to understand it from the Terraform. Yes, we'll come back to that. So that's all for today. So understanding about all these points, that is about main points. If we just refer that, EC2 instance level, how do we define the key pair? How do we define the security groups? And how to define the user data? And instead of hard coding that all the values here, how do we define the variables? Whenever we are defining the variables, yes, map data type, list data type, string data types. That is one point. And next we are talking about it outputs. Yeah, once a resource has been generated and you need to have some information or you need to use it, that output. Yes, outputs, how do we generate it? Is it clear these points? So type the clear in the chat window, then we'll wind up for today and we'll meet tomorrow. Let me do one point here. So this complete code I will push to this GitHub repository. We have the GitHub repository, right? About our GitHub, where is that? Let me get the GitHub URL. That is in the GitHub. Yeah, for about your reference point of view. So I'm going to try to push this code. Already we have a batch 48 repository, right?
Sir.
So let me push to that repository. B48, yes. So let me take this code. This repository URL. Let's go back to the Git bash. And first, let me create this local repository, that is git init. Local repository has been initialized. Git remote add origin to this remote repository URL. Git remote -v. If I check it, yes, patch 48. Now let's try to first let me check it the branches. So local, which we have that master branch. But in the remote, what is the branch we have? Yeah, so in the remote also master branch which we have. Let me try to push this. Git push origin, the master. The branch, I mean, here repository names are not matched, right? That is the main point. So what I need to do is we need to do changing that name. Okay, let me do one thing. So I'll do that, creating separator because the repository names are the different. That's why it is not matching. Let me create quickly one repository name, that is Terraform. B48 Terraform. So that is getting used by other resource. That's not allowing. Okay, good. It has been changed. I just closed the Visual Studio Code editor. Okay, let's go to that B48 Terraform. I'll recreate that. Once again, git init, git remote add origin, and let's take the latest repository URL. Same name only, right? Source reference spec master does not match. Okay, so what is the remote repository that has been created? So let me go back to the browser and let's check it. Okay, so it is not yet created. So let me use it. This command also. Let's identify the branch master. Do one thing. First of all,
Sir, there is -u. It push -u origin master.
no. The -u, that's fine. First of all, we didn't commit the files, right? Even the local also we didn't commit it. And let me commit the files. That's why it is not showing the master branch. Git add, but I don't want to commit this .terraform folder, only these files. Resources files. Even the TF state files also not required. Only these 4 resources I'm going to push it that. Somewhere I was storing about the key of the Git remote repository. Let me get it there. Okay, so it's already pushed off and good. Yeah, so now it has been pushed. And let's go back to the remote repository. And let's refresh this now. Yeah, so there are the 4 files which you can refer it and we can work it on it. Provider specification. Resources specification. Yes, there are the two resources which are defined, and this is the shell script. And finally, variables file. Okay, you can try to use this GitHub repository. I'm just going to ping this in the chat window. You can try to use this. So whenever we do that update in the local system, you can commit to the remote repository. Yes, is it clear? The concepts for today. Okay, good. So tomorrow we'll meet it and we go for this extending these scripts with some dynamic approach. Still, it is not done. We got that output, everything is working. Yes, we are good, but still it is not done. That is code more optimization. That is important. So writing the code, you can copy and paste it and you can get this code within the 5 minutes. So yesterday and today, whatever we are talking that, I can conclude in just 10 minutes. But requirement based understanding, that is important. So how we are referring that the Terraform documentation. I just use the Terraform documentation, nothing of it. Instead of using the Terraform documentation, if I refer that other Google, then I could have got it more the output easily, right? First approach is important. Approach, if you know it, if you make it this standard, then you can work for any resource. Tomorrow, if it is required for Azure, yes, you can work it. The first manual, how do you know it? Once you know the manual, then as you are defining the manual based, then you need to understand that, and you need to find the solution from the documentation Terraform. Or refer the Google, no issues. Yeah, good. So this approach is required. Tomorrow also, yes, that is required sometime on the Terraform itself. Then we have that like provisioner concepts. Yes, once these are all done, then we'll move to the about Tomcat, Maven, these resources. I'm going to use the Terraform to launch the machines. So next onwards. Yeah, good. Thank you. That's all from my side for today. So it's good, almost 2 hour session today. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.